Welcome back to Green Shift, the climate podcast all about travel and tourism. This week, we're looking at a major step forward in how data flows through the travel industry. Travalyst, the non-profit coalition founded by Prince Harry in 2019, has just launched a data hub. It's designed as a central place for accommodation providers, from small independent B&Bs to global hotel groups, to share key information about things to do with climate. Everything from renewable energy use to carbon footprints and certifications. At launch, the hub is available to Travalyst partners, including some of the biggest names in travel and tech, from Booking.com and Expedia to Skyscanner and Google, representing a combined market value of over $3 trillion. The aim? To make it easier for travelers to see and compare the climate impacts of where they stay, and to help businesses of every size share their climate credentials. If travelers really do want greener choices, this could be a game changer for the future of trip planning. I'm joined by Julie Cheetham, Chief Operations Officer at Travalyst, to talk about what it is, why it matters, and what comes next.
I joined Travalyst just a year ago now in September. And ahead of that, I was the co-founder and CEO of Weaver, which is a sustainability tech platform for the hospitality industry. Travalyst is a non-profit coalition of travel technology companies. It was founded by the Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry, officially in 2019. And the Duke had the vision to see that all travel takes place in terms of technology facilitation in some way. So Google, Booking.com, Skyscanner, Expedia, or the global distribution systems like Sabre, Amadeus, payment systems like Visa and MasterCard. And so had the brilliant idea of getting all of these folks around a table in a pre-competitive coalition. And Travalyst is the secretariat that convenes that coalition. So we work together as tech role players in the hospitality industry to be a force for good and to make pre-competitive decisions that drive positive impact in the travel industry.
And tell me about the new data hub that you are here to talk about.
Thanks, Darren. It's terribly exciting. So for as long as I can remember, we have wanted to give travelers, whether it be leisure or business travelers or day trippers, better information about accommodation, flights, experiences, restaurants, activities, so that they can make more sustainable and more positive impact choices. So every travel business has an impact, whether it be positive or negative, right? And there are many that are working hard to amplify the positive impacts for planet and for people and for their businesses and their communities. And so we need a way to be able to share that information with travelers when they're making the decision of what to do, where to go, what experiences to embark on. The system of sustainability data in the travel industry is very fragmented. So there's no central place where you or I could go to access some information if we were wanting to make sure that our trip was going to benefit, a particular place or not exploit a particular area of biodiversity. And so Travalyst has worked really hard, first within the aviation space, to bring flight emissions information to travelers so that they can choose lower emitting flights. What we've done over the last year with the Data Hub is we've really just exploded that into an industry-wide interoperable data platform that we can push data through for any accommodation very soon for any rail product so that booking systems can display that to the folks that are making decisions about their holidays or their business trips. So this really unlocks the flow of sustainability data for the whole travel industry.
And what might you see? What sort of data would you see in this project?
So the version of the Data Hub that we're launching will be closed to Travalyst partners only. But towards the middle of next year, we're hoping that we can launch it globally. It will be fully open access. And that means that if you're a traveler, when you're booking your flight, you can see your flight emissions, thanks to the travel impact model. But through the Data Hub, you will also be able to see the sustainability credentials of your hotel or your B&B or short-term rental when you are visiting a site and booking that accommodation. So you might be able to see 3 hotels in Madrid and see that 2 of them have got a sustainability certification, and perhaps one of them has published their carbon footprint, so their emissions per guest bed night, and you can see, oh, this one has a lower carbon emission associated with my stay. Or they make use of renewable energy, and you quite like that as a traveler, so that you're able to pick the hotel that best fits with your values. The environmental data is the starting point. Fast to follow next year will be the social criteria and biodiversity criteria, so that travelers can really see what impact their choices are making on planet and places and people in the places they're traveling to.
And what do travel businesses from a small boutique hotel to a major online travel agency need to know about this? Like, will there be a way to kind of upload your information if you were running a small business to, what do you need from travel businesses and partners to make this a success?
For now, we're uploading large data sets that already exist in the industry. And then over the course of next year, we will release an interface which allows small operators and independent hotels and accommodation providers to directly put their sustainability data into the Data Hub system. So that's fantastic, because 80% of our industry is made up of small and medium enterprises. They'll be able to pop their electricity consumption or their energy stats or their certification credentials directly into the system. For the larger groups of hotels, we are working with the hotel groups themselves, as well as our partners that take accommodation information into their systems already, to change the data permissions so that we're able to push all of their sustainability information straight through the Data Hub and then display it on the other side, so that any traveler using any booking channel will be able to see that information.
And I wanted to ask you, what is the current state of sustainability information in the travel sector more generally? You did mention that before, that it's a bit fragmented at the moment, but how would you describe how it is, and how does what you're doing compare to other things like what the GBTA and HCMI and all of that does?
The thing with travel data at the moment is that many different entities have a little bit of it. And so hotels may have their own data, or they may not, because, they may not even know how to understand their own energy consumption, for example, when we're talking about carbon footprint. Or when we get into the social arena, they may not be tracking their, diversity information or their levels of local employment level. So a lot of this is sitting in independent Excel spreadsheets and databases around the world. And then there are folks that are doing a fantastic job of collating some of this data. But again, it might be for a data set of 20,000 hotels at the most, right? There are over 3 million accommodation providers available globally. And so only Travalyst, because of our independent position, has the ability, because we're completely agnostic and we're not a commercial organization, to take in all of this data from all the sources, normalize it, make sure that it is compliant, and then display that out the other side so that travelers can have access to it. We work very closely with our strategic partners in the industry. So the GDTA, Global Business Travel Association, the WSHA, the GSTC, the WTTC, UN Tourism. We actually have a partnership meeting coming up. We try to meet at least once a quarter and discuss how we can support one another in these initiatives. So we try to work with existing frameworks as far as possible at Travalyst, existing methodologies. And then our job is that sort of data intermediary in the middle to unlock the healthy flow of data through the system, I guess, and ensure that it can actually get out there at scale through all of our partners.
And you mentioned compliance there. I just wondered if you could please just help me understand. So I know that some companies have tried to do things like this. So I just wondered, what is the status of all of that with your project? Are you confident that it will all be fine, basically?
Eventually, it will all be fine. I think compliance it's a full-time job for a large portion of our team at Travalyst, right? Compliance, industry relations, regulation, and just unpacking and understanding those for different regions globally. So the one thing to know is, because we ingest data and then we normalize it or transpose it into a standardized and compliant format, we can do that for any number of methodologies or standards, depending on the region and what display is required for that area or that company. And going back to the compliance case, I think we're in a period of a lot of flux around regulations that affect hospitality and accommodations in particular. And so there's a lot of things to watch and to anticipate in the very near term. But because there's great communication in the industry, we have understandings of what the drafts of those look like, and we can anticipate how we will need to become compliant. It's the same for the certification space. We know that that is also changing in terms of compliance. A part of our team is working with our industry partners to update the criteria for certifications to make sure that the certifications that Travalyst supports or is aligned to are compliant. And so compliance is kind of an ongoing exercise for everyone in the industry. I think we're well placed to stay abreast of it, though, and to make sure that these solutions are on top of it.
If you were to look forward to next year after the second version comes out, what are your hopes for this, and how do you think it could help the travel sector in the long run?
The ultimate goal would be, is the data hub is completely open at scale, which, we're hoping to be able to get there as fast as possible, resources allowing, that we could put all travel data through all verticals through this data hub. And so that means flights, accommodation, rail, overland, experiences, conferences. And at the other side, you would be able to see the full sustainability impact of your trip. And that's kind of the absolute end goal, right? That any traveler making any decision, whether for business or leisure or both, would be able to fully understand the impacts, social, environmental, and on biodiversity, so that they can really make informed decisions. And that gives us a global data set. So that global data set then unlocks a huge amount of value for the industry. Travalyst ourselves, our role is to provide that data, but we foresee that it could be used by policymakers, legislators, some of the wonderful solutions out there doing reporting, analytics, consulting. They need a good global data set to be able to do their roles. And so, as we've seen in the aviation sector, this data has unlocked a lot of possibilities. And so we're hoping to do that now across first accommodation and then rail and then the rest of the verticals.
Emissions data in aviation has become so detailed to the point, of every inch of the plane is kind of like measured in terms of emissions and everything, like the weather, how long it stays on the ground, everything. So it'll be great if one day, we could see that across other sectors, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. And I mean, imagine a future where we could even see how much of our dollar is staying in that community when we've gone on a holiday or had an experience, rather than, leaving perhaps to an investor that is not perhaps part of that community, which is also absolutely fine. And there are many business models, that work in that way. But if you're a traveler that it's really important to you to support the place in which you're going to stay, then that may be really fantastic information to have to hand. Yeah, so very exciting possibilities, Darren, for this data hub and what it can bring to the industry.
Yeah. And like you say, many people want to travel in a more sustainable way. And there are plenty of surveys that come out that show this from various people, like businesses, even your partners, booking.com, are always bringing out surveys that show this. But I feel that people often don't know how, or, they can't get the information that they need and that they want. And this could actually be the answer that people are looking for.
I agree. And especially if we do it in a way that's accessible to the smaller independent businesses, which, as I mentioned, make up 80% of our industry. So, it's easy for bigger hotels or hotels with more resources, perhaps, to be able to provide their credentials and to be able to become certified, for example, and then to be able to display that or market that. But there are so many folks with independent or boutique or, smaller businesses doing absolutely fantastic stuff. And they just don't have the resources available to tell those stories. And so this data, we're hoping, can be the basis of some of those stories so that their amazing work can also be put as an option in front of the traveler.
And can I tell you what, one of the things I would love to see, and it is just simply to know whether if I'm going to book into a hotel, whether they are using renewable sources or not in the energy makeup of the hotel. I know there's a lot more complications like scope 3 and supply chains and what have you, but I just want to know, are you using fossil fuels or renewables, or is it 50% renewables and 50% fossils because of the energy grid you're on? Or do you have your own solar power installed on your hotel or resort? It's just so hard to find out that information. And you can ask them, obviously, directly in an email or whatever. But I just wish there was a filter or something, the way you could put in your dates that you want. And then you could say, you could tick a box that said, show me hotels with at least 50% renewable energy or something.
So the really good news is that you must have spoken to our product owner, because that is one of the first data points that is going to be released. So we've, along with the carbon footprint, per night that you're staying at the hotel, and some folks like to see that per area, so per square meter, for example. So we've got that as well. We've got whether or not the hotel is certified, and then we've got whether or not they make use of renewable energy sources. If they do, we've also enabled them to indicate what proportion of their energy comes from renewable sources. Because many of the places that you would least anticipate have state grids that are renewable. They're powered by, hydro energy, or there's a hybrid of both. And so it really gives hotels the opportunity to tell their story. And so hopefully you will be able in the not so distant future to filter your stay on that basis.
Yes, it's amazing. I recently read that in Brazil, most of the energy comes from hydropower. I was like, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're often places that you least expect that have quite progressive grids, and sometimes just through, resource availability and sometimes through design. But when you dig into this information, I think, we can all geek out about it. It might not be that exciting to our average traveler, but there's some really great stuff happening in our industry, and it would be wonderful if we could actually bring that to light.
Yeah, absolutely. And there will be people from the travel sector listening to this, especially in the hospitality and hotels. That's a very big Skift audience. When this opens up even further next year, how would you like to collaborate with these businesses?
We would love for them to share their data. And so it can be daunting at first, particularly if you have not calculated your own sustainability impact before. If you've never, filled in a carbon assessment, a carbon footprint calculation. And so we're trying to keep that interface as simple as possible. Also, a lot of membership organizations are working with us on this program of work. So if you are, for example, a long run member, or you belong to one of the travel associations that we're beginning to work with on this journey, then members will be able to share their information through their associations, and we can pull their data into the hub and then push out great information that tells the real story of their business on the various booking platforms and channels of the partners at Travalyst that work with us.
Another question that I had is, when this all opens up, how can you make sure that everything is as accurate as possible?
So, that's always the crux of any big data project, right? So the first thing to note is that the data of every hotel remains their own data. So data security in the system is set up to be very strict. It's your own proprietary data. It can only be shared in terms of the license agreement that you would read through and be able to sign before you can submit your data. So your raw data will not be shared, but it may be used for calculations, for example, in your carbon footprint per bed night or per room. And so that's the first thing. Then the second thing to remember about the data is that we need to keep it secure. So this data hub is built with, GDPR, security, privacy of information, all of those compliance requirements in mind. And our fantastic partners at Visa and MasterCard, who are responsible for millions and millions and millions of pieces of confidential data on a daily basis, have helped us to make sure that this data security and governance is absolutely watertight. And so it really comes down to the licensing agreements as to how the data will be used in line with what's, going to try to drive positive impact for the industry and how we maintain the security of that data. Then in terms of accuracy, systems are really smart, and particularly with machine learning, we're able to to, for example, triangulate the data that comes in between previous data sets that have come in and identify if there's an outlier and say, this looks wrong. You may have captured it wrong, for example. So one of the things that the system can do is flag anomalies in the data. But in the second version of this hub, we're also working on verifiability. So we have built a blockchain foundation so that third-party auditors would be able to verify the data as needs be for certification purposes and for, display purposes where third-party verification is required. And so that is the next step, is verifiability of this data. And the Travalyst partners are working towards that as our 2026 roadmap.
I can't believe it's going to be 2026 next year, by the way. When people say that, I'm just like, what? What is going on? I just wanted to ask you as well. I know that you've got this closed period first with your partners, but what might we see as industry professionals during that period and also consumers of travel, if anything?
You may be contacted by one of the Travalyst partners to say, may we share your information in this way in the data hub for display? And so please do. We encourage all hotels, independent groups to use the channels that are open to them at this stage to get their data into the system. And then what you can start to see on the display side is as our partners start to pilot this, you'll be able to see accommodation information being displayed on their various booking platforms.
And I think I have to ask you as well a very important question, which is about certifications. And I know Travalyst has a list of certifications and so on, but there are so many that mean so many different things. What are your thoughts currently on the status of certifications in the sector?
The certifications initiative that Travalyst launched last year, where we actually recognize a list of certifications from the industry, I think there are about 60 on that list currently, was actually kicked off because of this, Darren, as our partners were saying to us, how do we know which certifications we can reasonably display and which are not worth the paper that they're kind of written on? And so the first round of certifications that were recognized by Travalyst and displayed, which is the current list on the website, our independent advisory group worked with our partners to come up with a list of criteria and principles to say that these certifications, are credible and they meet X, Y, and Z criteria. Now with the legislation, particularly coming out of the EU, we are currently in a working group with a number of our partners and experts to revise those criteria to a second, more stringent version of criteria, because we know that the legislation imposed on certifications is going to become stricter. And so in anticipation of that, there's a project that is currently underway. And so certifications will be re-vetted according to that. And then Travalyst will again publish the list of recognized certifications. And this is so that our partners know that if they display a certification badge, that the traveler can trust that badge. And that it is, for example, has third-party verification. It's not a self-assessed kind of criteria list, for example. And again, the way the legislation changes, we all have to keep up because it's for the greater good. And so get more and more refined in terms of those criteria as time goes on.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many pieces in this puzzle of what you have created. How long have you been working on this and how are you feeling now on the cusp of it sort of coming out?
So Travalyst has been thinking about this and working on this since inception. And then Weaver, which is the company that I was formerly a co-founder of and led, had been working on digitizing this for a number of years. And so there was an incredible opportunity in the middle of last year where Travalyst acquired Weaver. And so instead of Weaver being a commercial, sustainability and data organization, that has been dissolved and the platform has been repurposed to be the engine room for this amazing open access, data hub that can facilitate this data availability at a broader level. So, I think between us, we've been working on for a good 5 years. This year in particular, the team has just done an incredible job at Travalyst of repurposing that underlying functionality. Within the space of 12 months, they've, stripped it up, pulled it apart, put it back together again. And the fact that we have a fully functional end-to-end system now to launch to our partners at the end of this month is just testament to what the team has managed to pull off. Is incredible. So we've really doubled down on it this year. 2025 has been the year for the Data Hub.
Yeah, I think it sounds really exciting. And thank you so much for telling me more about it. And I can't wait to see how things might look, on the end interface for me, like as a consumer. And is there anything else that you think we missed that is important to mention now?
I think the important thing that I would love to share is every business would love to tell their sustainability story, and this data will enable them to underpin that story, with fact. And that's really exciting. And to reiterate that our role at Travalyst is to provide data at scale for systems change. That is our mission from day one, from when we were formed, to be able to scale data that can really change business models, can change decision making. And so we have a very specific part to play in this. And we're then handing the baton over to the industry to do great things with that data. And we'll continue to work in our coalition and at industry level through our amazing strategic partners to try and see how this data can be a force for good and can change the travel industry for the better. There are so many opportunities.
Well, thank you so much. Good luck with everything and the launch, and I'm sure everything will go amazingly.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me, Darren. I really appreciate it. It was lovely to chat to you.
That was Julie Cheetham, the COO of Travalyst, on the launch of their new data hub. It's still early days. For now, the system is only open to Travalyst partners, but by next year, the aim is to open it up globally. The long-term vision is bold: a single platform where data flows seamlessly across all kinds of travel. If it succeeds, travelers could one day see the full footprint of their trip even before they click book. For the businesses powering our trips, especially the small independents that make up most of the sector, it's a chance to have their efforts recognized and visible on the same platforms as the biggest players. As ever, the question is how quickly the industry and travelers themselves will act on this new transparency. You've been listening to Green Shift, the climate podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, share it with a friend or a colleague, and join us next time as we continue to explore the future of travel on a changing planet.